Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today, guys, we are joined by Steve, CEO of PolySwarm, to talk everything about what this particular project is looking to do and why we are so bullish on this one. Guys, as we get into it, if you do find this video useful and informative, hit the like button. Really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all this said, done and out of the way, let's jump on down to the desktop and actually meet Steve from PolySwarm. Hi and welcome to Cheeky Crypto. It's fantastic to have you join us today to talk everything PolySwarm. Guys, should we get straight into this? Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit around what PolySwarm is for anyone who doesn't already know?
Sure. Hi, I'm 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘, CEO and co-founder of PolySwarm. We started building this because we were cybersecurity guys and we would go respond to incidents. So PolySwarm, very simply, is it's crowdsourced antivirus. Is the simplest way to put it. And what we basically did was looked at some of the market solutions out there, specifically things like VirusTotal, and really wanted to bring this idea of competition to the antivirus space. So, instead of just your Nortons or your McAfee antivirus on your machine detecting threats, right? It would be actually a bunch of different software engines competing with tokens to detect new and emerging malware, and they would effectively, give better answers than just one engine on its own. So it's based on something called the prediction markets. If you've heard of things like Augur or prediction markets in general, that's really what we started with, and we built that out today.
Super. And do you want to sort of touch on why you built PolySwarm?
Sure. We started, I built up a small company that did a lot of incident response. So a lot of what we had to do was we would go into a network after there was a piece of malware found in there or something hinky going on, and we would look for essentially the attackers or anybody who planted malware there, and we build these tools to detect the malware that they built around this big enterprise network. And we got a little frustrated because we take this tool and it would be, from targeting a state-sponsored actor you've definitely heard of, and we take it to another customer who we thought was also compromised. And instead of being able to use the tool, the response we got was pretty surprising. It was basically, this tool is going to be a lot more pain than it's worth, and it'd be great if this tool was sitting there in a platform with a lot of other tools and then helping me detect threats before I had a problem. So that was why we started building PolySwarm. This was this frustration we had with building a tool, an antivirus engine in our case, and it just sitting on the shelf forever, which was no fun for anybody.
Yeah, and you've got your main net's gone live now, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So we wanted to get this idea out to a bunch of the security community that's just like us. So I don't know if have you guys ever seen Capture the Flag? This is a great aside. So it's like the nerdiest version of Capture the Flag you can imagine. So instead of, all of us being on a paintball field or something like that and trying to get to the other end of the paintball field, the organizers of these competitions, they deploy hardware and software. They give everybody this stack of custom hardware and software for this game. They put everything on a closed network, and you're playing against other teams, and the goal is to find vulnerabilities and attack other people's setup and defend your own, right? And essentially there's what's called flags planted on these machines. And when you capture those flags, you get points in the game. So it's basically, hacking games is the lack of a better term. So we actually socialized this idea with a lot of the people we play these hacking games with. We got a lot of like, oh yeah, I have this tool that I built for this purpose, and it detects threats in this category, but it's sitting on a shelf and it's not useful to anybody. And so that's one of the ways we really started down this path of building PolySwarm platform.
Yeah, excellent. So it's really kind of taking multiple tools and basically making them readily available to the masses, right?
Yeah, basically. And I don't know how much I can swear on your show, but we have have you ever seen Silicon Valley on HBO?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the hacking teams, some of the guys and some of the co-founders and I were on, has a cameo reference, a Guilfoyle cameo reference in the Silicon Valley. So it's like, it basically goes, not even fucking School of Root is the reference if you want to look it up.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. It's pop culture. It's very weird.
Yeah. So let's actually just kind of roll it back a little way here. So some of our viewers might not be overly familiar with the terminology of malware. Can you just kind of run through what it is at kind of top level for everyone?
Yeah, great, great question. So, essentially we all have computers and their applications running on them, right? And we'd all like to think we know what's going on our computer, right? You're running your word processor, your web browser, or whatever, right? Malware, quite simply, is an application designed and built by somebody who either, wants to have it installed on your PC for things like ransomware, right? Which are basically, they'll encrypt all your files and they'll say, send me your cryptocurrency or I delete, all your precious pictures of your cat or whatever. And there's other malware, Trojans, or that basically just sit on a PC and they're there for monitoring what's going on the PC, right? So, it might be super interesting if you're, say, some state-sponsored actor or an intelligence agency to read somebody's email, right? And you would use malware effectively to, to infect someone's PC and be able to do that surreptitiously. So the whole idea behind PoliSwarm is we have this crowdsourced model where we detect new and emerging malware every day. So we see about anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million samples come through the platform today. Per day. And we have antivirus engines all the way from commercial names you'd recognize, like Kaspersky, SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, all the way to names you would never recognize, but they're very specialized. So one we'd give a shout out to is an engine by somebody called 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘. They only focus on ransomware, which is a pretty small slice of the malware pie, right? Or not a small slice, but it's definitely in the news. But they focus on identifying only ransomware. And so they actually don't participate in this crowdsourcing unless they think something is ransomware. And that was one of the big key ideas behind PoliSwarm, was we really wanted to make it such that if some small team has expertise in one type of threat or one particular malware actor, they could just give opinions on that type of malware and leave the rest of the malware space to the big guys or whatever, but they could still make a nice profit by participating in this marketplace. That's the whole idea behind what we're building here.
Yeah, sounds really good. And obviously you're starting to get some attention on like CoinDesk. I see the other day as well, and sort of talking about some of the partnerships that you've got with like or customers, should I say, with like Microsoft and stuff like that, which is fantastic to see. At a high level, how does PoliSwarm work?
Sure, great question. So let me sort of break down what a prediction market is, and it'll make it a lot easier to understand what PoliSwarm does at a very high volume. With our rewards being and 𝗕𝗃𝗪, our token. Let me get to there. So a prediction market, and I've thrown out this example before, so apologies to your listeners if they heard it before. But prediction market is, let's say all three of us on this call, we're all stockbrokers, right? And our strategy is very dependent on the outcome of the 2024 presidential election in the US, right? So right now in 2021, we put a sort of what we call a prediction contract out there. And it asks a question, and it says, okay, who's going to win in 2024? Is it going to be Biden or Trump, right? And at the end of that, it says, there's a statement that says, place your bets effectively. So what happens is you get a bunch of people on either side of the equation. Some think it's going to be Biden, some think it's going to be Trump, and they weigh in. But they don't just weigh in with their opinion, they actually stake their opinion with an amount of money, right? And this is critical because that amount of money indicates their confidence in the outcome, right? Yeah. And the other interesting thing is you get opinions that are formed in all sorts of different ways. Maybe one guy's just doing analysis on poll data, right? Maybe he's just looking how the voters are going to do. Maybe another guy's looking at demographic data. Maybe another guy built a fancy machine learning model and a bunch of artificial intelligence that's going to predict how the election goes, right? But at the end of the day, they all have that same output. They got to say Biden or Trump, and they got to put an amount of money behind it, right? You guys following so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So at the end of the, we have this idea in the prediction contract called an expiration date. So let's say the expiration is, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months before the election, right? So what happens is all those stakes along with the opinions, Trump or Biden, are locked in. So you're going to have an amount of money on either side. And let's say it's, 10,000 nectar for Trump and 1,000 nectar for Biden, right? So what that really is it's the market saying 10 to 1 that they think Trump is going to win over Biden. So the interesting thing is you and I, we get this prediction. We get the prediction when the contract locks everybody in about 3 months before the election. So you and I, we can go make our assertions in the stock market, buy the stocks we want if we think Trump's going to win, but we really have this broad source of opinion as to how the election might go, and it's formed by a bunch of people. Make sense?
Yeah.
How does this tie into PolySwarm, right? Essentially what we've done is we've taken that same process of the prediction market, the staking, everything else, and we make the staking in our token Nectar, right? Instead of people weighing in on the presidential outcome, instead we have software antivirus engines weighing in on whether something is malware or not. And we built this today. We have 55 engines on the platform, and we do anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million new, never before seen malware samples per day. And we make that really nice prediction market opinion about them. Now, I didn't finish the example, right? How does somebody win and how does somebody lose? So, you and I, the stockbrokers in the previous example, we got what we wanted. We got our prediction, right?
Yeah.
So 30 days later, let's say the election happens, right? And we get our outcome. We know if it's going to be Trump or Biden. So what happens next is we actually pay out all the people in the production or in the prediction contract. And we pay them out based on the proportion of their stake on the winning side, right? And we pay them out 2 ways. One, we pay them out from the losing side, right? So let's say there was, 1,000 whatever on the losing side, right? And all 3 of us were on the winning side, but you guys had bigger stakes than I did. You guys would get paid out in proportion to your bigger stakes, right?
Right, that makes sense.
The other reward that we split is we split the reward that the actual stockbrokers put in at the beginning, right? Where they needed this prediction, where they're like, hey, I need to know this information. I'm gonna put this incentive so people weigh in on it, right? And so we would split that in the same proportional amounts. PolySwarm works the same way, except the questions are not about elections. They're about, hey, is this file, is this URL, is it malware, right? And we talked about customers or whatever. I'm not going to get into specific usage of each customer, but we make it really easy. The platform makes it really easy for customers to see this massive daily stream of malware and understand if that malware affects their customers and if it's malware in the first place, and if so, what type of malware, and all these other things on top of that. That at the core of it is the real innovation, dare I say, that we've tried to push with PolySwarm.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds absolutely immense, and something that I think is very much needed in this day and age, right? Specifically as, I guess everything gets a little bit more sophisticated as time kind of progresses. There's always bad actors that are looking for new ways to kind of try to get their way into systems. And obviously we see quite a bit in cryptocurrencies, right? In terms of ransomware, which you've obviously mentioned already, that is individuals that are being targeted or entire groups of people being targeted. Telegram's in a clear example of a space that is kind of full, unfortunately, of bad actors. So it feels like something is very much needed in this space, right? And I think you're going to do very, very well on the back of everything that I think you've been building. So congrats for that. So that kind of leads us on to the next question, really, which is, what exciting events have you got coming up on your roadmap next? Where's your next steps?
Yeah. So we're constantly adding new engine partners to the marketplace. We've been constantly adding new customers as well, and the customers are really the consumers of the data we're providing. But the next thing we're really excited about, and the main thing I want to talk about on the roadmap, is democratizing this idea of more people being able to contribute to this platform, right? So up until now, we've really focused on getting the engine providers, the cybersecurity experts, and customers who know how to make use of this data involved in the platform. And that still remains true. But our next phase is we want to really support, the sort of everyday internet Joe, right? As you guys browse the web on a daily basis, I don't know how much time you spent in Chrome or Safari today, but you actually generate quite a lot of data about potential threats out there on the internet, right? As you're sort of traversing that landscape. So our next stage with Polyswarm was we're sort of start democratizing the generation and monetization of that data. So you guys are familiar with Brave, the Brave browser, all that.
Yep.
In the same way they monetized the user's attention and sort of trying to shift the balance of ad revenue to benefit the actual internet users whose preferences are sort of being bought and sold.
Yeah.
In the same way, we're looking to do a similar thing with security data and really compensate everyday internet users for the security data that they generate. Every time you guys type in a URL or complete a search term, you're actually generating something called a DNS lookup. Are you guys familiar with this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is basically for your listeners out there. This is what translates, google.com into an IP address of, 8.8.8.8 or whatever it is, right? So there's actually a big market for that data in the security industry today. It's called passive DNS data, right? And there's these big collectors out there, these big collection efforts that take all those name translations, google.com to IP address, billions of records over the world, and they actually sell it to the security community on the back end. Why? It's very interesting if google.com starts, resolving to say the IP address that's known to be operated by a repressive government, right? Rather than Google's actual IP address, right? That's pretty security relevant data. That could harm a lot of people, dissidents, journalists, whatever. So what we're really excited about next with Polyswarm is taking how that data is generated and really compensating users for the fact that they may have seen an event like this happening where a DNS response changes to a bad actor or something like that. And really passing that value from the customer who benefits from this data and is able to protect a lot of their users to the user that sort of observed it in the first place. So we've actually written a white paper on this in May of this year, and we're sort of road mapping this out. So look for a lot more from us there. And I think this is going to be the next great utility for Nectar.
Yeah, that sounds like immense utility for sure. Like, it really does.
Yeah, and we're really proud of what we built here. But I think one of the things we've really discussed a lot within the team is, we want to broaden the audience here, because there's a lot more ways that average internet users can help make things safer through the Polyswarm platform for everything else, and there's a huge economic benefit to that.
Those are the kind of questions that we had kind of scoped out for you today. But is there anything else that you kind of want to leave the audience with, something that maybe we haven't covered yet?
I think our mainnet launch has been sort of an interesting case study in crypto or in the environment in general. We did our we sort of started this in early 2018, and here we are at the end of 2021, which makes me pretty naturally reflective. But the fact that we've just launched a mainnet is a lot of alphas and betas, and I'm really impressed to see the crypto ecosystems matured quite a bit. And I think some of these like layer 2 scaling solutions that are coming now, especially the adoption that DeFi has driven, I think there's some really interesting plays for us there with Polyswarm. Because some of this threat data that's being generated by average users, right? It looks a lot like almost like an exploding NFT. And what I mean by that is it's like really valuable for like a couple weeks, right? When someone can make use of it and stop an attack, but after that, it has no long-term value. So, would love to hear a lot more from the community, either a Telegram or whatever, about, how they think of threat intelligence data, or, if they've seen any sort of obvious scams in their day-to-day travels that Polyswarm might be able to have a use case for beyond what I've described here. So really looking forward to involving the community there. I think is the one thought I wanted to get out there.
Yeah, and we'll link the Telegram group in the description of the video for our viewers to head on over. I mean, scams and bad actors is something that we spend an awful lot of time talking about at the moment. It's so relevant, whether that be scams in the crypto space like honeypot scams, whether it's the videos that you see on YouTube that you send X amount of X crypto and we'll send you 1.5 times more back, you know, all of these different scams, the fake wallets, all this sort of stuff, you know. There's a huge problem in the space, and it'd be fantastic to sort of galvanize everybody together to really sort of you know, push the project forward to support with things like this, and clean up some of the dirty side of crypto that, you know, isn't wanted and isn't needed. And you know, I guess it's a sign of how early we are, right?
Yeah. You see things in a similar vein with ransomware on the malware side, specifically around something called cyber risk insurance. And there's a lot more attention being paid to these insurance policies, frankly, because the insurance companies have had to pay out a lot of money in 2020 and 21. You know, did you guys see the whole Colonial Pipeline hack and shutdown there?
I'm not sure.
I don't think I've come across that one.
No.
Yeah. So it was a few months ago, but basically there was some ransomware that hit something called the Colonial Pipeline Company. It's like southeastern United States, and their job is to move petrol, up from the Gulf of Mexico in the U.S. to like the northeastern seaboard, so think like New York, D.C. Anyway, the pipeline got shut down for 5 or 6 days. It spiked the price of gas, and we had to truck fuel from the terminal up to the thing, because basically some ransomware actor got in. I forget what the actual ransomware was. I think they started out with about 5 million and went from there. But you better believe there's an insurer on the other side of that that's paying for that, right? So the other thing I'm really excited about in this space is, you know, and this is probably a couple years off, but what happens when we get past DeFi and we get to like, you know, like decentralized insurance schemes for this sort of cyber risk insurance, right? I'm excited from the perspective of the scammers too, right? Like, you know, if people are incentivized to report these scams, not just out of altruism, but also they have a financial interest, right? Yeah. And that contributes to the whole cyber risk insurance play. I think there's an area for Polyswarm in there as well. That's an absolutely gigantic market, and the insurance companies really can't quantify their risk here. So there's another piece there. So yeah, I think those are the things that I would be wanting to talk about with Polyswarm, and where I'm really excited where the market's going, especially as I see how it relates to crypto and the trends there.
Fantastic. Well, it's been fantastic to catch up with you today, to talk everything kind of Polyswarm. So really do appreciate you spending the time, and we'll have to do it again when you're a bit further down in that roadmap and see what kind of things you've got kind of going on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time, guys. Really nice talking to you.
And that was Steve from Polyswarm. Hopefully you have found this video useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. Really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.